Good evening. A little bit late, 3 minutes. Sorry for making you wait, but hopefully that's not been too bad as it wasn't too long. Didn't get my dinner until like 15 minutes ago, so scoff that down just in time to get on with this. So, it's been a little while, hasn't it? Lots of other things have been getting in the way, but I've also been doing a lot of preparation because I felt like the wiring was not going particularly smoothly. So I did a bit of preparation in between to make sure we can get things kind of moving along a little bit rather than just me sitting there going, I don't know what to do. So first of all, let me catch you up on some things that I've done outside of the live stream. I know I did kind of say I was going to do everything on the live stream, and pretty much everything is, but there's a few little details which I've not, obviously the cutting of the panel and stuff like that. But oh yes, of course, hello and welcome everyone. Oh, my microphone's getting a bit stuck on my trousers. Yes, good evening, good evening, good evening. We have Mikhail here again. And we have Simon here again, and we have the Maker Viking here again. And we have Peter, and we have Dave, and we have Joshua. We have many, many people. So welcome, 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 welcome. Strangely, it's dropped from 45 viewers to 26 in the first like 2 minutes. So well done to those 45 people who really were committed to waiting, but then disappearing as soon as they turned up. Judging by the fact that nobody's complained about the audio yet, that's probably going okay, so we'll carry on. Let's cover some things that I did in the meantime, and then we'll have a quick ad spot. So, first things first, I made this. So, well, is it this way or this way? Oh. So this is for the power and LAN connectors which go kind of on the side. So normally this is part of a full panel as part on the side, and this is where the kind of corners are. But I didn't want the whole panel. We're not having a fully enclosed printer at the moment, but I did want somewhere to put these two connectors. So I basically took the geometry and lopped the end off, and now we've got this. So this will fit on the side, somewhere kind of in there. You can't see obviously the full angle, but in that space. Actually, no, sorry, it's the other side. But it goes in there. And then we can put the two connectors in there, and that's that. I will also mention that obviously this and that panel, as you can see, I've done lots of writing on it, look rather messy at the moment, and I don't think that represents the build very well. So I will endeavour to paint them. So we'll get through everything, and then off stream when everything's kind of done, probably after the first print, I'll take everything off and print these so they don't look this horrible, damaged, written on kind of colour. Hopefully they'll look a little bit neater. So that's one thing. Now, that's the one thing I can show you without this. Oh no, there's another thing. So also on here, so if we switch to a close-up view, we've got a different lens on today, so hopefully this is going to work okay. So as we looked at this board before, the Duet 3 Mini 5 Plus, we added this expansion on, and I commented that this whole expansion board was a little bit wobbly and maybe I could print something to support it. It turns out if I'd looked a bit closer in the box, there are supports that are included. So you can see them there, right in here and here. These are little kind of press fit plastic, I think they're probably nylon, and they literally just press fit into the board, press fit into the expansion, and now you've got a really nicely rigid mounting plate. So the reason I'm showing you here rather than doing it on the stream is because I put them in and then I couldn't take them out without damaging them, so this is what you're getting. Oh, we have Pavel here. Everyone is here. Pavel and Eva. So Eva and Pavel are now the same person in two people at once. Ah, he's logged in. Yep. I know what it's like. You have multiple accounts and you log into the wrong one when you want to do a thing. So yes, that's the little Duet thing. The next thing I want to show you is, well, so basically on here, can you see sort of ish? It's kind of reflecting the light, unfortunately. But I've drawn lots of lines on where I want the wires to go. I've drilled loads and loads and loads, I think about 30 additional holes for M3 screws to go through so that I can mount little clips. So this is the kind of thing I initially planned to put in there, and then I can put zip ties through each of these. The downside of having something like this is that if you use zip ties to manage stuff, then each time you want to change it, you pretty much have to cut all your zip ties. So it's kind of okay if it's a production machine and you know nothing's going to change, but if there's any potential for things to change, it's, in my opinion, not particularly ecological, I suppose, to use those. So then I designed this, which is a clip. So it has a little handle here to help you open and close it. It's going to be quite difficult to show, I think, in this angle. Just a little clip. And then there's a hole here, and then a nut fits on the inside. And you can use that in all the places where I've put the stuff on the thing. So we can have the head of the screw on the inside of the printer and the nut in here, and then they'll screw in nicely and you'll have a nice little clip. So yes, more clips. Cable management on printers I think is really important, so hopefully this will work really well. I've not actually tried it so far. In fact, that's a lie. Hang on a minute. I've tried it to the extent where this was the first design I made, and it doesn't have a little handle, so like, how do you get a cable in? Like, you can kind of push them in, but if you want to get it out, you have to use your finger on here to open it. I was like, well, that's really not very good. It was also too stiff. So I made it a little bit thinner and put that little handle on the side, which actually has worked out really rather well, and it allows you to open it. So these are printed out of ABS, which is kind of bendy, which is good for a little clip. So that's the other thing I've done. There are other things, but we won't mention those at the moment because we may not get to them today. So those are the main things that I've done, and that's going at the pin. So obviously the plan today is get on with a bunch of wiring. I don't know how much prelude you want, but I think we're pretty much ready to get into it. So before we do that, we should do our very quick sponsor spot. Just so you know, the video is sponsored by the providers of the kit. Let's just do the sponsored live stream thing. Here we go. This live stream would not have been possible without our sponsors, RapRig, Duet 3D and 3D Printz. So a big thank you to them for supporting the live stream. Carry on watching to find out more, or you can follow the links in the video description. So yes, big thank you to the sponsors. Obviously wouldn't have been possible without them, so great to have them providing stuff. So I think that's all the little updates. There's actually more updates, but we need the printer to show you what they are. So let me try and bring this in a little bit closer so we can see. And of course, the more I work on it, the heavier this machine gets. One day I might drop it, but hopefully not today. Hopefully I don't hit the microphone in the process of doing this too. One thing I did look at buying on the internets this week was a really large bearing, which is used for making a lazy Susan. So I could put a lazy Susan on this desk and then I can spin the printer around instead of having to lift it up and move it around all the time. So I think this is going to be the angle we're mostly going to be working at today. So obviously that main camera over there is going to be useless. But hopefully you can see a little bit over the top with this. You can see a little bit round one side, and then we're going to mostly be focusing on the close-up view. So I've got a zoom lens here today, and we'll do it a little bit that way around. So now hopefully you can see kind of what I'm doing and what I've been trying. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, look at all this, right? It's such a mess. That's why I need the thing painted. So basically this is where the Duet board goes. This is some labeling for the different motors, just so I had an idea of where stuff is going. I've kind of labeled some of the things, some of the connectors. In fact, you know what? If this could be laser cut onto the provided panel, that would be actually amazing. for the standard design. Obviously people that use other boards, this would be useless, but it'd be really cool to have that kind of label just to show you all these sorts of things. And then I put in some lines to check where wires can go. I tried a couple of different wires to check everything's going to sort of fit. To make everything work, I've added in an additional hole here. So this is the same as the one on the left hand side. I've actually just mirrored it basically across the other side. So the left one, the original one, will be for the bed wires, which is the thermistor, earth, and the live neutral for the mains. And then on the right hand side, we'll have the 3 stepper motor cables. They are quite chunky with this plastic sleeve on them. I may or may not keep it or replace it with something else. But anyway, that's where the motors go. And then there's this other wire that comes through in the top right corner where I've made another hole. And that's going to be for the end stop, the Y-axis end stop. I could have routed that through using more of the clips that I made before, down the extrusion and out through this hole. But it started to get really close with the length of this wire going all the way down here, across to this hole, through that hole, and then back like up over here and back to here. And so there you go. You can see it would have been really close. So in the event that kind of people try and copy me and maybe aren't successful, or I mess it up partway through, I'd rather have plenty of cable available to get it wrong a couple of times, just in case. Isn't it? It's just motivationally challenged. Do other people call them different things, or like? There you go. Redesigned the spool holder for 5 kilogram spools and designed a 15-inch screen holder for the side. 15-inch screen. That's pretty cool. I suppose if you had like an opening door on the front, you could have the front panel as the screen and then have it hinged, because that would be cool. Lick the smash button. Yeah, if you want to hit the like button, that would be fantastic. It's weird having me on this weird camera angle. I don't know. Can we maybe zoom it in a bit so I'm not quite so, there we go, it gets a bit much. So I suppose we better get started. I've put this zip tie on the wires here because I think that's approximately what's going to be at the top of the thing here. These cables come down here, go into the board around here. All the holes are kind of along the lines. I've sort of tried to make them parallel, but I didn't spend ages aligning them, so they're not perfect. But what I'll probably do is get them into a CAD file and suggest them as an addition, if that's something other people want to do, or maybe I'll just provide them on my website if that's something else that's maybe not so popular. But I think having all these clips kind of aligned down here, or we'll use these depending on where we go. I don't have enough of the new ones that I've printed to do everything, but hopefully enough to do most of it. So I think the first thing is to get the control board remounted and start getting the wires into their intended positions. So we've also got something that I may not have showed before. So these are actually part of the original the file list. There's some extra files which you can print, and these are kind of little things that go with a hole like this, and they have little holes in so you can add a zip tie, and then this threaded part goes on the top. It provides a nice little passage for the cables to go through. So I've got 2 of those, one for each side. That should be pretty good. I've actually just noticed as well, one screw is loose. That screw down there is not. That'll do. Okay, let's remount. I need some tools. Where have they all gone? I've lost all my tools. So as well as the normal toolkits today, we're going to be using a couple of crimp tools. So I might actually walk you through those now, so it's nice and easy at the beginning of the stream. So the first tool I'm going to be using, well, one of the tools, no particular order, is this. So there are equivalent things branded by other manufacturers. This particular one is a Stanley Fat Max, which is a really strange name, but this is basically for stripping wires, and it's really good. As you can see, you get 2 clamps down, so you put the wire, maybe I can show you with something, the end of this, which I don't think we'll need. So you put your wire through here. In fact, we need to. You put your wire through the end. I can't see because I'm looking at a different direction. That, you see, first it grips it, then it puts the bladed end, and then it holds it and strips it. And they have nicely stripped wire. So that's a really good tool. One of my favorites, actually, as weird as it is, having a favorite tool. There are other bits down here as well, but I think they're kind of suboptimal. So if you don't have anything else and you can only afford one tool, then it's okay. But if you can, there are other tools that are better at doing those other jobs. Yeah, that's a nice crimp stripping tool. The other one, unfortunately, I can't give you as much information about because it has no labeling, branding, or part numbering on it at all. But it looks like this. There's not even like gauge numbers for the holder or anything. So this is a crimp tool. It has like 2 stages, so you can do the part that grips the plasticky sheath and the part that grips the wire at the end at the same time. And this is the tool I use for most of the stuff we're doing today, I think. So yes, obviously if you find one that looks exactly the same, which you probably will, many of them look very similar, look for these 3 parts at the end and it should be suitable. I think they normally call this one suitable for Molex and JST. It's really generic though. Unfortunately, with crimp tools, unless you're buying the genuine high price, like 600 quid ones, you can't guarantee any sort of quality or reliability from any of them. You could get a good one and then somebody else buys exactly the same one and it's useless. So what I would recommend though is tools without any paint on the end. So here you can see it's kind of unfinished metal and it's kind of smooth on the inside. You want ones like that. If it's painted, the crimp often gets caught. It kind of gets trapped under the clamping force and you'll be forever trying to get those out and probably damage stuff in the process. For JST XH, I actually have a narrow one, which is very similar. This one is labelled as SN-01BN, so that's Bravo M. What's M? I can't remember. Here you go, this is what it looks like. So as you can see, it looks very similar to the last one, which looks like this. But the difference is, if I show you the ends, you can see how the jaws, which is the kind of silvery bit on this one, is really wide, and on this one it's very, very thin. So the XH connectors are really thin, so you have to have a thinner tool because otherwise you end up destroying the whole connector. But I don't think I need any JST XH, which is why I hadn't mentioned that one for me today. The other one I may use probably is this red, blue, yellow connector one. It's quite often referred to as such. So this does your very where are they? I've lost them. Huh. The ones for like power supplies and this sort of thing. I do actually have a video on all of this on my channel, so you can probably find it. So this kind of one, you can tell because they always have these little dots on, yellow, blue and red. So that's how you probably go about doing that. So let's move those back out of the way for the minute and we'll get this control board mounted in. As suggested from last time, we're going to mount it in the reverse way round. So we have the heads, although to be honest, because it's not the final installation, it's not going to matter too much, but we'll have the heads on the inside of the printer and the nuts on this side. Which just means we have to be a little bit careful of the board when screwing things in. So the reason I'm putting the control board in now, I don't have to shout. Whenever I'm on video, I end up shouting and then my voice dies after like 20 minutes. So the point of this, what was I saying? So I'm putting the control board in now so I can get the right lengths for the wires. Because obviously they're too long as they are, and I don't want to have them super, super long the whole time. I want to be able to cut them down to a sensible size. So in order to do that, I really need the control board in, and I'll need to probably install a bunch of the clips as well. Maybe not all of them to begin with, just enough to kind of get us started. I'm going to get a couple more M3 washers as well. So now that there's loads of holes, it's a bit more difficult to identify the right one for each of these things, but hopefully I'll manage. I wonder if I can put all of these on and then mount it, or probably not. Might be nice if these little nylon things were threaded, so you could do this and then you have 4 studs to put the board on. That would be really neat. Or could you could just use those like little brass studs. That would be fantastic. What a good plan. So here we go. Let's try and get these all on together-ish. Okay. Just notice I've left one of the connectors on the board from when I was testing. I'm pretty sure we can conclude that Mikhail's favourite duets will be this one and the Duet 2 because they support Clipper. Surely there is no other boards. Righty-ho, let's get this connector off, don't need that. Right, I think now is probably a good time to get a bunch of nuts into these holders. We'll add a bunch of these into the panel. In fact, the printer is currently printing them. There's 4 that are done, so 6 rather. It's another 6. It might be a bit noisy, but I think we'll probably start the printer going off for another set. These were printed using eSun ABS Plus, just so you know, not sponsored. It's the first time I've used their filament. It seems okay. I wasn't expecting much, but it does the job. It's really like, I've not printed in ABS for years, since like 2015 or something was the last time maybe. Oh, this is going to be fiddly. How can we do this a little bit easier? Well, I might have to ask the guys at Duet if they mind me using Clipper on it. I'm assuming they won't mind, but it's one of those times where you think, maybe I should ask, seeing as they're sponsoring this. If they're helping with it, then they might actually want me to. That might actually be preferable. I'm by no means an expert with Clipper, having never used it before, but maybe if I do some revision before a stream, we can guidepost people through that as an early process as well. Yeah, the guys at Duet are absolutely amazing. I've met them a few times and had drinks with them and whatnot. They're super smart and they're just brilliant people, really. They've had a bit of a hard time with the, you know, what's been going on in the world, but they are blooming good at what they do, I'll give them that. That's already got one in, that's the one I tested earlier. Oh, this is drinks with people from like 2.5 years ago. The last time we could have drinks with people. Yeah, obviously not recently, unfortunately. Okay, so that's a few. So I think first I want to do the motor wires. So they're going to be coming in here. So I think we'll do a couple of clips around that area to get things started. Trying to be... Ooh, this is a bit tight. I hadn't considered the position of the part on the other side when designing this. Well, I didn't really didn't really design these holes, I just kind of did them because I needed them. I think if I was to add them to that CAD file, I would raise these ones up a bit because they're a little bit low. But there you go, look at that. That's just fantastic. I'm going to push my sleeves up because it's really blooming warm in here. Drink when you guys are in chat. I think for 2021, that 100% counts as drinking with people. Might not have passed a couple of years ago, but now it definitely does. There we go, there you can hear the printer going. I'm assuming you can hear it anyway, I can hear it. Oh, these are so nice. I'm so happy with how they've turned out. I've basically set the screw length so the hole's completely clear with the nylock nut as well. Hopefully they're large enough. That's the one thing that we'll be kind of testing as I put all the wires in, because obviously if they're not large enough, then not a whole lot of good. Obviously it can make them a little larger if they're not, but I think in some places they'll be right on the limit or not quite large enough, whereas in other places they'll be enormous. They'll have like one wire going through. Actually, might want this one the other way around. So at this point, the cable's obviously going to be coming through this and then diverting this way. So they might end up with a little bit of tension that way. I want to put that on the solid side rather than the hole side, just in case. I think that's looking pretty good. Only 69 people today. I guess that's... Oh, I didn't mention it on Twitter. Normally I mention it on Twitter. I might just post a link on Twitter very quickly. Shan't take long. So that's a good bunch of clips. How many more do we think we need? I mean, I'm trying to get away from putting all of them in, but I don't know if that's avoidable or not. Let's start with the motor cables. How about that? And then we know we've got something started rather than just faffing about the whole time. So with a bit of luck, all three of these Z-axis motor cables will fit through this hole. So obviously on the other side they're routed a little bit differently to how you saw me do them previously, but it's not very, very different. It's only a tiny little bit different. I've just switched it over to the other side, obviously, to go through this hole. I think this plastic tubing looks a bit ugly, doesn't it? But we can't have it all. Oh, come on, little connector. There we go. So yeah, I think these connectors, these clips, unfortunately, are going to be a bit small based on what I'm seeing at the moment, because this is only 3 cables. I suppose they're 3 really massive cables because of this big plastic sheath. Maybe I'll pull the big plastic sheath off. How about that? I feel it is a little bit unnecessary. It's not shielding or anything, so let's get rid of it. In fact, tell you what. We get this length approximately right. Let's cut it somewhere here and we'll take that. Hopefully that was the right place. You took yours off and re-sleeved. Yeah, I'm not really into re-sleeving the cables. There's just this risk of cutting the cables on the inside. Hopefully I can tear down like this. It's probably not good for the wire. No. Change my mind. I'm not going to do that. Shall I take the whole sleeve off? I kind of like the fact that it's black on the other side. It kind of blends it in nicely. But on this side, I think we just want the least amount of plastic possible. So I think that's probably good like that. And then those will go nicely up through here to somewhere in there. So these labels in here tell me that this is the left motor and right motor for the CoreXY. This is Z right, this is Z rear, and this is Z left. And then this is the hot end heater. This is the order the wire should go in, so blue, red, green, black. And then we've got FH and FE, what were those? That's these 2 connectors in here. Hot end, I think those are, no, temperatures are over here. Oh, what did I label these as? Oh, these are obviously the 2 heaters. 1 heater. Which is labeled there. Oh, fan for the hot end and fan for the part. I think extruder. They're 2 fans. And then over this side is 2 heaters, end stops, BL touch wiring, and all that. Bed. It's sort of the bed, but it's more the SSR, because obviously that's just switching the bed and then the voltage input. Anywho, so these wires are going to, so I'm assuming the left right, which I put in, was from the front of the printer, so the front left will be this one here. So this is going Z left, so that's actually going below here. Maybe I don't want that to go through there. Z left, so maybe this length here, about that. Approximately. I hate this bit where you have the cut wires. It's just literally the worst. Maybe I'll assume it goes through here as well, so we have a bit of extra just in case, and we'll do this length. Okay. So we'll cut the length, and then I'll show you how I do it. And try not to make a mess of it. Those are fans. Ah, yes, I did get it eventually, didn't I? A little bit slow on that one. So cut the wires to length, stage 1. Now, fortunately, all the stuff we need for the Duet comes in the Duet box. Let's bring you down here so you can see what's going on. Why the Ethernet version? Mainly because they provided it and they had an Ethernet one that they could provide in a short time period. Obviously, that time period was a little bit superficial. I wanted to have it ready for the start of the build, but obviously it's been a while since I've actually needed it. But there you go, that's just what it is. There's nothing wrong with the Ethernet one. In fact, I kind of prefer it. It's in my situation because my router is a long way away. Fairly isn't a long way, but it just means you can have a direct connection. It's much more reliable, faster file transfer to the printer, and all that kind of stuff. So, depends what you prefer. If you get a really strong Wi-Fi connection in whatever room your printers are, then maybe you would prefer a wired connection. So despite having done videos on what these connectors are called, I do forget them a lot of the time. So I can't remember the name of these at the moment. They're a Molex something, I believe. It might be the Molex KK254, but that might be completely wrong. You can check my video on the connectors because it shows you all the things you should probably want to know. Yeah, I guess, so for you, that they're probably similar because your Wi-Fi has a good signal in that specific area. For me, my Wi-Fi in this room is horrendous. So it takes forever to get an upload, even of small files. Whereas I've already tested this one with direct connection, and it's much, much faster. Right, so here we go. I've really gambled here. I've got exactly 4, so I've got no mistake, no opportunity to get it wrong. Slight downside of wiring the cables whilst they're on the printer is that you're obviously restricted to where the printer is situated in order to do it. So I'm going to try and be as detailed as I can in showing you this. Obviously it's quite difficult because it's really, really small, but I'll do my best. So, first thing first, you could probably try and strip them all at once, but for reliability, I'll do them one at a time. On the Crimp tool, there is this kind of guide thing, and it can be useful for longer things, but for this, the wires are too small and it doesn't even reach it. So we want to get the right length, but that's not going to help us. I could probably print a 3D printed one, which would help, but I haven't. So what I'm using as a guide is this screw here. I want the tip of the cable to come tangent with the edge of that screw, because I've tested and I know that gives you the right length for the terminal that I'm using. So the little terminals for this connector, for this look like that. Oh, how close can we get? Pretty close. You can see there's like 2 sets of wings on it. Maybe if I can't hold my hand that steady. So the set of wings closer to this end, just grab the plastic sheathing, and the other ones, grab the wire. So you want the sheathing to only come up as far as that one, and then you want the remaining millimeters to be wire. So let's try this. Because we're on stream, it's bound to go wrong, but there you go. So lining the wire up, gripping down, pull it off, and there you have the ends out. That looks a little bit short, but we'll put it on and have a look what we think. I think that'll be okay. So at this point is where I deviate from, I think, how you're supposed to do it. Well, I know how you're supposed to do it. The correct way to do it is to take your terminal, place it into the tool, hold it down on like the first click, then put the wire in and then crimp it. The downside is with not great tools, like cheap tools, and not necessarily doing everything correctly. I haven't found that to be a particularly effective method. You can end up pushing the cable in too far or not far enough, or it gets caught and all this kind of stuff. So what I typically do is hold the wire in exactly where I want it, and then I grab just very slightly the rings that are holding the wire, the wings that are holding the outer sheathing on the plastic sheathing. And now that will stay on there, and I can put it into the tool all as one piece, and I know it's going to stay aligned how I want it to be aligned. So now I need to get it into the tool, obviously, and crimp it down. So the way I align this on this specific connector, of the two wings, it's the set closest to the spring part. Oh, come on, focus please on here. So yeah, at the top of the wings, closest to that part, is going to line up with the very top surface of this tool. So again, you probably won't be able to see because it's super duper small. If I So I'm holding it kind of like this, grabbing that on there, lining up right at the top surface. It's in. I'm not wrenching all the way down. It even got stuck. I'm not going to clamp it all the way down and just push all the way. That's not what you want to do. You want to do until the right number of clicks, and you hear the latch come off. So you see this latch here. This is the one that's holding the spring. So it'll click, 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 click until it's done. And then you see it's now down. So that's as much pressure as you want. And then you release and it's done. This here is what allows you to adjust that pressure. So if you take that screw out, you can adjust it underneath and put this thing back. I think you're meant to be able to adjust it just from here, but I can't see any way to grip that and reasonably do it. So if you unscrew that, you can use a larger screwdriver. There's like a sort of screwy drivery thing underneath, and that'll be much easier. So again, not very easy for me to show you that crimp. It's come out okay. I think that's going to be good enough. Again, with cheap tools, it's never going to be, in fact, that doesn't look tight enough. That's better. So that I've gone a little bit past there. I probably need to tighten mine up a bit. So I'm checking that, oh, this is so small, this I can't get it any closer because it's attached to the printer. I'm firstly checking that the lower parts have not damaged the wire, but they are gripping it. And secondly, that the top part is gripping the wire on the inside. So one of the downsides of cheap tools, especially ones that do both at the same time, is that obviously you can't adjust them relative to each other. So you can have a situation where the bottom one grips enough, but the top one doesn't, or the top one grips enough and the bottom one doesn't. So if you have a tool that's like that, you're a little bit shit out of luck, I'm afraid, because you obviously can't adjust this tool. So that's where good tools are a little bit better. Or the alternative is to go for things like, I know some of the engineer tools by a company called Engineer they do one side at a time, so you can, but they don't tend to have this kind of ratcheting thing. But it allows you to do firstly the wire and then the sheathing, and that just gives you a little bit of better control over which side you're doing. So that's taken me 10 minutes to do one. So now you can probably see why wiring takes quite a while. But when you get used to doing it, you can speed up a little bit. You get your tools in the right place. And everything goes fairly smoothly. If you do mess up a crimp, there's generally no point trying to rescue it, honestly. You might as well cut it off and start again. Because, yeah, you can't really, they're very easy to break if you use force in the wrong direction. Oh. So doing the same thing, strip the end, hold the terminal in place, use something to gently close the sheathing ones, get the tool in place. I'm applying a little bit more than the clamp, but it's reasonable. It's not amazing. It's a cheap tool. You're never going to get it perfect with a cheap tool, quite honestly. Anyone that tells you otherwise, I think, is bullshitting. And this is why in my video that I did on all the connectors and crimps for 3D printers, I didn't really go into tools too much because, as I said before, you can buy the same tool 10 times and each of them will perform differently because their quality of manufacture is just not as good. Like, if you want something to be perfect and the same every time, you have to buy a 600 quid tool. So there you go. That's the way it is, unfortunately. So now that we've got all four for these one motor sorted, we want to go back up to here where I referenced them. I very handily wrote over it as well. So we've got blue, red, green, black. So that's going to be the same for each of these motors. The top one is blue, then red, then green, then black. I'm assuming that the kind of 3D model is correct because that's what I've taken that reference from. And these are all motors from RapRig. So excuse me, I'm assuming all that numbering and lettering will be right. So all we have to do now is basically reference which way the connector goes on. So we know which end is blue. In this case, the black end is the one that is the one. So we can start putting these connectors in. When you're inserting these terminals into these connectors, you really don't want to push very hard, and you want to push as close to the terminal as you can. If you try and push from back here, unless it's absolutely perfect, which sometimes they are, you'll end up breaking the wire, maybe damaging it. Oh, you can't see. Sorry. You want to push, don't push like this, push like this as you put it in, not that way around. Because if you push from back here, if it doesn't go in, you'll end up damaging the wire in the process, and you don't want to do that. So for these particular ones, if you can see, I think with the black background it was a bit easier. See the hoop part, and there's a little latch underneath. That little latch wants to go into the side where you've got these holes, and that's how far that goes in. So that will line in here. And as we said, the black is going where the one is. So all connectors, apart from the like single terminal ones, are normally marked with an arrow or a 1 or something to tell you which is pin 1. And that helps you orient the direction of everything. So to put that in, again, holding right up here, slide it in, don't apply much force, and that's clicked in, and we're good to go. So that's black, and then green, doing it kind of reverse order, and then red. I've not been checking chat, hopefully there's been nothing going on, and then blue, and that's one cable. And this was Z left, so this is going on here. Look at that. Absolute, oh, you didn't see. Absolute work of art. So this is looking really good as a management system. The zip ties is, yeah, I mean, because this is now really small, it can slip out this little gap. Maybe I'll close that gap up a bit. But just having something where you can, so if I needed to replace this cable, I can, oh, that's going to pull the whole thing off. That's a bit tight. I can take this out without having to cut loads of zip ties and replace them with a whole new set of tip ties, and then realise that I missed one of the zip ties and then cut them all again. It's just a bit of a waste. So there we go. That's one connector done. Why do people keep asking this icing question? I really don't understand what this joke is. Someone please explain to me what the hell is going on. I'll do that motor at another point. Let's get with this one next. So this one here is going here. So this is Z right. Let's remove the sheathing. Iron Man. I don't get it. Let's again cut a little bit extra for ourselves. Iron Man 1. Well, I have the memory of a fish, so it's possible that I knew at one point and now don't. Is that recent? Either that or I'm just culturally unaware. It's also entirely possible. When you do this, you need to be really careful not to cut the wires on the inside. It's quite easy to do. So I'm pretty happy that I haven't so far, but it may happen. 90 people looking, only 32 likes. Okay, now we're up to 90 people. It's probably a good time to do a little quick ad spot. So this is just 2 minutes. You won't miss anything. I won't be doing anything while you're gone. It's just a little 2 minutes to give you a bit more detailed information on the 3 sponsors of the video. We have to thank them because they very generously provided this for me to be able to do. So I shall be back. Well, how long is it going to be? Well, 1 minute and 55 seconds. I just want to make sure you get a timer when it shows up. Is it starting? Cool, so let's go. Be back in 2 minutes. This live stream would not have been possible without our sponsors, Ratrig, Duet 3D and 3D Printz. The Duet 3 Mini 5 Plus balances value and performance. It's focused on small and medium-sized machines for those that want the quality and reliability of a Duet control board but don't want the high price or high power output of the full-size Duet 3 mainboard. The Mini 5 Plus provides 5 onboard drivers and the normal complement of heaters, fans, I/O, etc. There are Wi-Fi and Ethernet variants with the option of using a single board computer like a Raspberry Pi for control in the same manner as you might with other Duet 3 boards. 3D Printz is a UK-based filament supplier, but in recent times have become so much more. They're now a great destination for finding name brand components from all over the world, such as the Antlabs BL Touch, Wham Bam Systems flexible build plates, 3D Gloop, Magiku, Bondtech, Slice Engineering and more. If you're in the UK and Europe, and maybe further afield too, you might want to check out their shop for your next printer upgrade. In the UK, you'll also be able to take advantage of their free shipping for orders over £50. Ratrig is a company that you may not have heard of yet, but if you're into DIY 3D printers, or camera sliders, then we're going to change that today. The VCore 3 is a fully configurable CoreXY 3D printer kit. It's gone through several iterations over the years, and all the knowledge and lessons learned have been distilled into the VCore 3. MGN linear rails, low vibration idlers, robust 3030 extrusion frame and 9mm belts are just some of the key selling points. Today I'm looking at the 300mm cube default configuration, but it's also available in 400mm and 500mm cubes for those that like their printers big, and with lots of configuration options too. Keep watching to find out more, or if you need more details immediately, you can find the links in the video description. Right. I've just seen that question from Tanish. Yeah, Pavel's answered there. This is my method for wiring up the VCore 3. Quite simply. So this is the default printer configuration, the 300mm cube, with all those other default configuration parts. So for anyone that's doing the same, this may be of use to you. It may not be. It may be something you already know how to do. But for some people it may be useful, so I'm showing it. It may also be useful, of course, for people with the different configuration, just because the process is largely similar. So sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. By this I mean stripping all the wires and then crimping all the wires. The downside of stripping wires that you're not just about to crimp is that if you accidentally touch the ends too much, they all fray and then you're, well, SOL. How many terminals did I get out? Not enough. So yeah, obviously you can't see me very much today, but we're doing wiring. And maybe we'll not do all the stepper motors all in one go. We'll go do another component to give you a good idea of some of the other parts. Okay, so where did I put the rest of? Where did I put the Duet box? Oh, it's over here. So again, making sure we get the order correct, starting with the 1. So it's black, and then green, and then red, and then blue. Now we can stick that up there, that in there, doodle-doo-doo, doobie-doo-boo, doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Done. What do we think? I think that's looking not too bad. I think I should do this last motor cable so we've got all this batch sort of done. I think that'll be good to do. So let's first do the sheathing. Let's just use this. So this is Z right, so we're going in here. Who wants to make a suggestion of which part we do next? Actually, that's a really terrible question to ask because you're going to ask something which is impossible to do or something. Oh, come on. There we go. Another 4-pin connector. From the one, black, green, red. Oh, you probably couldn't see what I was doing there, could you? Useless. Well, doesn't that look fantastic? This looks a little bit messy, but I think as wiring goes, obviously the whole messy written stuff all over it looks a little bit shambolic, but could be worse. Oh, I just remembered as well, because I've only put in like half the clips, because I'm noticing them sort of start to fall out a little bit like this. If I put the clips that are kind of in the gaps here and here, facing in the other direction, then that will stop that happening, because they'll just kind of go up like that. So let's take a look at this cable here. This is going to be very similar to the ones we've just done actually, but we're going to do it anyway. So this one is cable for the Y end stop. As I mentioned, I've got it coming through this extra hole at the top. This is not part of the design, but I felt like it was a good way to get that cable through there. I don't have a grommetty thing for this hole, but the connector which goes on the end is huge, which is why I made a huge hole, just in case it needs to go through it. Although the cable on the other end is shorter, so the connector on the other end is smaller. So I could go through that way. Anyway, forget that. This is what we're doing. So again, we're just going to do basically the same thing. Put it in a suitable clip that's nearby to where it's going. Check approximately what the length is going to be. So these are the, you a bit closer on here so I can see what I'm pointing at. So I've got a bunch of writing in here that tells me, you can't see all of it. So these two connectors down here, so this is a set of 3, which is this lot here. 2 of these are temperature for the extruder 0 and the bed. Then we've got the BL touch connector, which I've marked as this one here, I think. And then in the next row, we have the Y end stop and the X end stop. And I'm not sure what the 2 at the edge are. Probably nothing. I've also got this electrical diagram, which is on the rat rig page, so this is also very, very useful. Oh no, I got that wrong. This is nothing, then this is BL touch, and these two are end stop, as you can see from that diagram. So we need to now do one of these end stops, which in this case is Y, which is this lower one here. So I've written the wiring on here, have I? Yes, so it's blank, then white, then negative, which is black, then nothing, then positive. So nothing, white, black, nothing, red. That looks good. So coming back to this, we can probably cut this somewhere around, it's difficult to get lengths because you don't want it too tight, you don't want it too loose. You want some wiggle room. This one's one of those ones that's going to be a bit more difficult to do without taking it off the printer, so I might take it off the printer to do. You can see there's not a much. Could probably manage it here, but in this instance, it's going to be quite easy to take the connector off and do it on the desk. So bring this back down here, zoom in a little bit. Whew. Time for more wiring. Is this what everyone had in mind when I said I was going to do wiring, or were you expecting to see something different? Because if you were expecting to see something different, probably worth mentioning it now. And then we can maybe take a look at it. Oh, that's not going well. The thing you do have to be careful about with these tools is the piece of the sheen that you cut off. Make sure you get rid of it, because otherwise it jams up the mechanism. More dancing explosions. Oh yeah, I forgot the explosions. I knew I was missing something. And there's no chance there's going to be any dancing. So we need a connector with 5 points on it. We know you just need people to hang out when you're working on it. Of course, of course, of course, of course. It's nice to have people here. So this connector is going in this way relative to the board, and it's starting at the top with nothing, and then white, and then black, and then nothing, and then red. So we can put that back up here. Put that in through there, put that clip in there, stick this jammy in here. Oh no, yes, yes. Wire end stop. There we go. Not perfectly neat. I mean, I just leave a little bit extra just in case I do balls up the connection a little bit. Sometimes I can mess up a single connector multiple times in a row, and you don't want that when your cable's already on the very shortest length it can be. It's just not worth the risk. So, that's looking pretty good, isn't it? You know what might be entertaining? Doing the extruder heater wires, because I've not done this type of connection before and it may go completely wrong. So by my estimation, at the maximum travel, which is going to be over in that corner over there. This can sit approximately here, and that gives me just enough length. You can see the yellow wires coming to here, just enough length to get those terminals to there. But I have got to cut the current ones off and put on some new terminals. Now, the thing that makes this difficult is these are a slightly different high current connector terminal than the other ones I've just been doing. There's only, I think, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the packet. I need 2, and I don't want to cut these wires very much. And the hot end wires also have kind of a protective thermal layer on them. So they got this kind of plasticky woven stuff, and then they got a plastic layer, and then they've got the wire in the middle. So because of that, this tool generally doesn't work particularly well. It just can't. So we have to first try and cut the end fabric off with some very careful snipping. This is where it comes in handy to have good quality tools that stay sharp, because you can cut stuff quite precisely. So that's given a little bit of space. I'm actually genuinely super nervous about doing this. I also don't know which part of my crimp tool is going to be right. I'm assuming this is a variation of Molex, so I'm assuming one of these will be perfect. I think it's going to be the largest, but I might be completely wrong. This is going to probably go badly, but we'll have a go. Why the hell not? So this is what let's show you. This is what the connector looks like. It's different in a couple of ways to the other one. Firstly, you can see the wings are very much longer. Oh, come on. The wings, well, as always, there's 2 sets. The ones closest to where I'm holding are the ones that hold the wire, and the ones at the back hold the sheathing. The sheathing ones are really long, so if I don't crimp it well or properly, those can basically just get pushed down right into the wire and just shred it. So sometimes I have actually ended up cutting those shorter so that doesn't happen, because again, we're working with non-perfect crimp tools here, so you have to try and make do. Obviously it looks completely different and it's significantly larger. I found bending the ears on the crimp in a little bit helps with these. Oh, these long wings. Yeah, maybe. I'm going to give it one shot. I mean, obviously I don't have many tries to get this wrong, so I appreciate the help. I'm going to give it a shot as it is, following my normal method, because then I can, if I use my method, I can judge a bit better how well it's going. So again, using that to slightly bring those in, so that's now supported. So then onto the tool, using the largest part. Of course, it's easier to go smaller than it is to go larger. Oh. Oh my days, it's actually gone basically perfect. I could not have asked for much better than that. I think I might do it again just to increase the force a touch. There you go. I mean, yeah, sometimes with the long, I call them wings rather than ears personally, but I mean it doesn't really matter. Yeah, sometimes if they start, if they start like this and your crimp tool is not prepared for that kind of geometry, then they can go a little bit weird. Sometimes they kind of do this, which is mostly what you want them to do. Sometimes one buckles one way and one goes right over. If it doesn't sit in square, then they both just end up like, what is it, just like mashing on top of each other. There's a whole host of ways it can go wrong. But I think we got quite lucky there. So let's have a go with numero dos, and hopefully we'll get that one nice and good too. So I'm just going to mark this so I have an idea of where I want to cut it. I think that's the first time I've been complimented for my elbows. Thank you very much. What's the chances we get lucky 2 crimps in a row? I think if we do, I'm just going to call it skill and pretend. I think there might be, the jaws might be a bit closed. Yep. Ooh, that didn't go quite right. Oh, this one's not going. So this one's not playing ball. See, the thing I don't like about these tools, I don't know if you can see as I'm doing it, but the motion is quite jumpy, which is the worst thing. You really want to have a really smooth action. One of my other tools, I'll try and show you. I think this one's good. So the jaw's painted, so these ones are generally not very good, but what you can see is how smooth the jaws close. Maybe against my shirt a little bit easier. So gradual force and it gradually moves, whereas this one, you apply gradual force and it kind of stutters, which is really annoying because when you're handling very tiny crimps, it can push them off. Ideally, I want to like disassemble the whole thing and re-lubricate it because it's probably just a bit of lubrication that's the problem, but I haven't done that. This is not going well. Come on, crimping. I've never concentrated so hard on crimping in my life. Oh, it's not deep enough. Oh, I think we might have it. Yes. Just go in again for a slightly more force. Bloody amazing, excuse my French. That's worked out absolutely wonderfully. Yeah, it is just friction. I mean, my first guess is that while it is really heavily lubricated, it's probably dirty lubricant in that there's other stuff like in the joints, like little bits of metal and stuff. So my guess is that's why it's doing it. So these connectors, they're not polarized these, so they can go either way. Oh, absolutely lovely. So these are also going to use this hole here, and then clip onto here, boom. So that's how I'm doing that. So no extension required for that. This is just another end stop connector and the thermistor connector. We've kind of seen how I'm doing those, so I'm probably not going to do those right now. What I can show you is how I'm going to extend some cables. So let's just switch to the wide angle for a minute. So on the top here, there's a couple of wires which have no need extending. So you've got the, I don't know which fan this is, but that's one fan, and the other fan, they're obviously too short. The BL Touch has 5 total pins, 2 connectors, so 3 pin and 2 pin, and then these 4. Oh, excuse me, I do apologize. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cables that I need to extend. And the way I'm planning to do that is this ribbon cable that I've torn up. All of these devices should be fairly low power, so this ribbon cable should be good. I did have a cable that was slightly thicker gauge, but I tried some of the terminals and it just absolutely shredded the sheathing each and every single time I tried. So they were too thick. This is probably a little too thin in reality, but it should work okay. It is very, very thin. So this is kind of a rainbow ribbon cable, so we've got multiple different colors. Fortunately for the BL Touch, we do have a single set of brown, red, orange, which perfectly matches the BL Touch 3 wires. And then we also have a black, white, which is also together paired for the other 2 BL Touch wires. And then we have yellow, green, and purple, blue, and those will be for each of the fans. The advantage of having these different, although obviously this is not earth or anything like that, the advantage of having the different is that when you get your cables through the sheath and all the way back to here, all the way back to the control board, you can still see which one is which because they'll be coloured. Obviously black and red makes the polarity visualization easier, but there you go. There's positives and negatives to either side, to either way you do it. Have you seen the printable heat shrink? They're great for numbering stuff. I would love some printable heat shrink. That would be cool. They sound expensive. I do have a label maker thing. I'm not going to get it out. I do have a label maker, but the problem I found with that is that they're really rigid, even though it's really thin. So they stick to flat stuff really, really well, and all my boxes and organisers and stuff are labelled with those. Absolutely perfect. But you try and wrap it around a cable, and after a short while, it's just completely peeled off. So not really designed for this, so obviously doesn't work particularly well. So, as I was saying, these are the connectors, the wires I'm going to be using for extending. And obviously I can't be using the connectors that come with the Duet for a start. They're only wire to board connectors, which means goes from a wire into a PCB. So what I'm going to be using is, what are these lot called? These are my favourite connectors of all time. I'm such a nerd, I have favourite connectors. So, I've forgotten what their name is. Let me just look up the name a little bit quickly. I put all little labels in the boxes so I know what the connectors are. 1494419. This is like the order number from the company I bought them from, Farnell. So when the set gets low, I've got the company name and the order number on there. So they're very easy to get more of. Not DuPont connectors. DuPont are not terrible. I won't say terrible. These are Molex Sl connectors. Again, so they're a, let me show you on the camera. So this is a locking connector. They're very similar to DuPont in size, but they have a clip on them, which means they can lock together. So you have one side and t'other side. One side fits into t'other side and clips together, so they cannot come apart. They are absolutely brilliant in my opinion. They're quite big, especially this end, which is unfortunate. It'd be nice if they were shorter and smaller, but you know, you can't have everything. So, well, yeah, so there's your thing. This is what I really like. Molex SL, 2.54mm pitch, single row connector. I've got them here in, oh, I have a 3. I didn't know I had 3s. What a treat. I don't have a female 3, I only have a male 3, or one side. I don't know why I've only got this side. That's kind of daft, isn't it? It's not going to be much use. So yes, this is what I'm going to be using for extending. So this is only going to be used. This is only going to be used up here, kind of in the hot end area. Obviously, we're going to be using the normal connectors to connect them to the main board. The reason I'm using these is because they're locking. They also have really pretty good current capacity, but it's kind of irrelevant at this point. Because they're by this hot end that's moving all the time, I don't want them coming loose due to that motion, movement, vibration, etc. So locking connectors, in my opinion, are really good option. They are a little bit pricey, they're not like super cheap, but you generally don't need too many for a printer, so it doesn't add too much cost. These are genuine ones, so they're maybe a little bit more expensive, but there you go. That's what I'm going to be using. Oh, it's 9:05 already. Yeah, if y'all wouldn't mind leaving a like, that would be terrific. JST SM, what's JST SM? Ah, yes. That's the wires that are on the end stops. The end stops have JST SM, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they're obviously very similar. I think JST SM are more meant for wire to board or panel pass-through kind of stuff. But, you know, much of a muchness. If they're locking, then it's all great. JST XH, are you sure? Oh, I mean, you probably know. Oh yeah, they are. They're just black. I'm used to seeing XH always as white for some reason. So that's another 6 clips done, which is good. So let's do some of these, shall we? I keep the pins and stuff in a different box. Another box of loads of different connectors and terminals and such. Right, I might just take this box out, and this box out. Again, super organized, so every little box has a little label in. How adorable. So when I run out, which will probably be in a few years' time, hopefully that order number will still be helpful. Oh, you got by the bot. I've even reduced it. That's all messages removed. I'm so sorry. What did he say? Please refrain from posting links. What? You didn't even post a link. Normally it thinks it's a link. Ah, here you go. On your, you said JST SM also has locking male-female ones that work well for extending. It thinks it's a link if you have a word that immediately follows a full stop. So someone else is about to get banned there, probably Joshua, because it's 30.00. Yes. Don't we all love the angry bot? No. The thing I never know what to do is which side to put the male and which side to put the female. What I'm going to do is double check the printer that I have already done this on and make it the same. That way, if I switch tools, then I can put them both sides. So we want the male terminals on the extension, which is going to be on here. So these are the male ones, the big long pointy ones, for obvious reasons. So this is going to be some very thin, small wiring. Again, I'm looking for the same, approximately the same amount of wire sticking out. Roughly the same thing. Roughly this. Oh dear. These tiny little wires might be even too small for this. I was hoping this was going to work, but honestly, I didn't check. Seems to be on there reasonably well. Yeah, this is not... I might try a slightly different tool for crimping them. The pre-crimping grabbing. Yeah, see what I mean? Not going great. Not totally sure that the wire has properly crimped there. Maybe we'll just give it a little bit extra. A bit more oomph. What I do recommend is if you ever have some of these that you end up throwing on a printer that you end up throwing away, get these cables off of it before throwing it away, because they are a little bit expensive. That is all. So, I mean, this orientation doesn't really matter at the moment. So there we go, we've got a nice long cable there. I'm not going to do the other end at the moment. I'm going to get that in when I've got all the wires ready from the hot end extruder thing. Then I'll route them all and we'll do them all this end kind of at the same time. So that's one extension. Now we need to do more extensions. Of course, to do the parts on the hot end, I will probably take them off there, because the wires, I'm going to have the wires really, really short in order for this to work. So I want to get the best access possible to reduce the chance of any mistakes. what I might try is a quick test of these just to see how we're doing on the connection. So what I'm going to do is a continuity test, which basically checks that there's an electrical connection. It's all just conductive from one path to the other. So to do that, turn it on. It's already in the right setting, and then when they touch, when there's a connection, you get a beep. I don't think it's very loud. You can yeah, there you go, it's probably loud enough to hear. So for example, if I do two adjacent wires, we should get nothing. But if I do from one end to the other, we should get a beep. There you go. So that's brown to brown. So that tells me, because I'm doing it from the tip and not from where the actual crimp is, it tells me that the actual crimp is connected fine. Yes, apologies for anyone with sensitive ears or headphones. That one's good. Yeah, so that tells me that, I mean, it doesn't tell me that the current rating is going to be achieved for these, but it does tell me that there is at least a connection, and it doesn't seem to be problematic. So fingers crossed, that should all work okay. Again, so for some reason I don't have a 3-pin female. Someone remind me to buy a 3-pin female. I should have 3-pin females for the... I'll just stick them in a 4 for now. Might reorganize these depending on how I connect them in. Because this is in the middle of the wire, the order is not going to really matter much as long as you have them consistent. So that's another extension. Let's do another one. The only device I'm aware of that can need shielded cables in some instances is the BL Touch. There are specific circumstances which they talk about a little bit, but quite vaguely, on their website for instances where shielding may be needed, but I don't believe I've ever come across a case where that is a problem. So everything else, that's not actually crimped super well that time. For everything else, I really don't think it's necessary. In fact, to be fair, the other time where you might need it is display connectors. I'm not particularly an expert, to be fair, on that kind of electrical detail, but I'm pretty sure the signal that goes to the screens is quite sensitive and prone to problems. Maybe can be useful to have shielding. I think it allows you to have a slightly longer length, perhaps, maybe. Don't really know. That's another extension. And this one. I may end up changing the arrangement of the wires in these sockets when I put everything together, but for now, cool. I think I should make some Davey, or I need to bail, need to do some evac work. I'm slightly underwater. Thank you, Tila. Thank you, Pavel. Thank you for joining in. Enjoy your extra work, and I shall see you later. Ba, 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 ba. Right. What do we do now? I think we do another one of these that's going into here. I think we need to add a couple more of these what's it doodahs. So we need some more screws. And maybe a couple more nuts as well. These are not from the kit, by the way. This is my own collection. So you won't have all of this stuff included. It'd be nice if these nuts were a little bit easier to assemble into these, but I'm not sure of a better way of doing it, to be honest. This is very space and material efficient. Cordless drill, no, because I don't want to absolutely shred anything. Right. What other wires do we need? Let's get something over here. Oh, sorry. This is what I'm doing. We haven't done any mains wiring. What's the time? 9:30. Shall we go full risky business with some mains wiring? Feel like we should. That might be a good idea. Might also be a terrible idea, but it might be a good idea. I've just not considered this at the moment. Let's put a couple of these over there. We can, well, we won't be releasing any magic blue smoke because we probably won't be turning anything on today, but I guess there's some potential for explosions. So that one's going over there. Get in there. Come on, come on, there we go. There's going to be a cable clip there, that's going over there, clip there, and that's going next to that one. This one is going, what is this? This is, what is this? Thermistor. Thermistor's also going over there, isn't it? So that can go down here. Over here, that will also come out here. That's going to be close, I think, that thermistor. Oh, doesn't that look super neat? Okay, maybe not super neat, but pretty neat. So, first thing first, for the bed, we need an earth cable. The reason you want an earth cable is multiple reasons. Firstly, you've got live wires in the printer, so you should have earthed, well, all the metalwork earthed close to anywhere where there's anything live, just in case anything fails. The second reason, which is basically sort of the same reason, is that with a silicon powered heater and a metal plate over a large surface area, you get what's called capacitive coupling, which is something you may not have heard of. This was the first time I experienced it, obviously not with this printer, many years ago, the first time I used a silicon powered heater. And it's where you basically create a capacitor using the bed. So if you were to touch the bed without the earth with the bed running, it can, yeah, it doesn't like shock you, but it does sort of shock you. The current is very low. Like, I don't know if it's that dangerous, but it's definitely not good. It's definitely not good. So we're going to make sure that we are as safe as houses by adding in an earth cable. Sorry, I'm thinking. So we're going to do one of these terminals on the end of here. So this is one of those, let's get this over here. This is one of those like single wire crimp terminals. So as you got marked on this tool, you could use this. It's all marked in here, but nah. It's not designed for crimping, it just can crimp. Whereas this crimp tool, nope, not this crimp tool. It's the one I got out earlier. Where did I put it? over here. There we go. This is obviously designed to do that, and the EC also nicely color coded, so you know what's what. So we do basically the same as before. Obviously the amount you want to cut off the end is going to differ probably. If we try and zoom in a little bit, you can see how the wire lines up with connector. You can see where that bulge is, that's where the actual crimping is. This is just plastic here. So this is the part that you want to cut off. In these connectors there is nothing that holds the sheathing, it just grips the wire. So they're not great for anything that's moving too much. But, so we want that like 5mm or something off the end. In fact, I'm going to cut this a little shorter first because there's a bit of copper sticking out the end. So we want to trim this somewhere about there. So when we put this into here, what we should see is the copper. Oh no, yeah, that happens. Carefully put that in there. I think we probably want a little bit more off, to be honest. You want the copper to come up to kind of the rim of this connector. You don't want it sticking out the top. That's definitely not good because it can get caught under the where the clamping will be, and then it won't make a good connection there. You do want it kind of to the tip. So I'm going to try and cut a tiny piece off, but generally small bits don't work very well. No. So we're going to risk it with some side cutters. You know what will happen now? This will be too much. That's probably a little bit too long, to be honest, but you can see what I mean. Just kind of poking out the top. And then you simply whack it in the tool and clamp it down. So the tool again has a, kind of is two parts, a part for the plastic bit, which I'm not sure really does much, and a part for the wire bit. You jam that in there. These ones tend to take quite a bit of force. That's way too much. That tool's not calibrated quite right. I would say that's probably too much, but I think we'll probably be okay. The reason I say it's too much is because if you do over clamp these, you damage the wire to the point where it can basically just fall off. You just crush the copper so much that it fails, and then you don't have a good connection. But that actually is not too bad. So this wire joins the others, but is wired, screwed to the underside of the bed. Don't really have camera set up for doing this. You're not going to be able to see me doing it. Oh yes, you will. There we go. What are the chances? So there's this hole in the bed. I mean, as it happens, you could probably use the corner ones because they're not being used for anything else on this printer. But we want good metal contact, so we're going to have the ring flat to the underside of the bed, and we kind of want, so we want that there. Kind of want a washer on here as well, but no, I think it'll be okay. So screw down from the top, this up, nut on from the base. Now I'm going to use two nuts here, and I'm going to lock them against each other. Obviously this will get very hot, well, very hot, will get as hot as the bed, which is pretty hot, but maybe not very hot when we're talking in comparison to the hot end. So I'm going to try and clamp it rather tightly. You could probably use a nylock nut, but I think it's M4, this screw, and I don't have an M4 nylock, so we're going for locking nuts instead. which is 2 nut, no, jam nut, I believe is the correct term. So one nut jammed up against another nut. I need something to hold the top. I think this will work. My screw's not really long enough, unfortunately. I think that'll be okay. That's very tightly screwed in. So I'm also going to remove the 2 zip ties that are on here from previously. Again, this is why I don't like using zip ties very much, because you end up just wasting them all the time because you have to cut them off and replace them. While I blow my nose, we're just going to have a quick ad spot. And loads of people have disappeared again. Strange. Okay, well, quick advert for 2 minutes, and then we shall be back with more good stuff. This live stream would not have been possible without our sponsors, Ratrig, Duet 3D, and 3D Printz. The Duet 3 Mini 5 Plus balances value and performance. It's focused on small and medium-sized machines for those that want the quality and reliability of a Duet control board, but don't want the high price or high power output of the full-size Duet 3 mainboard. The Mini 5 Plus provides 5 onboard drivers and the normal complement of heaters, fans, I/O, etc. There are Wi-Fi and Ethernet variants with the option of using a single board computer, like a Raspberry Pi, for control, in the same manner as you might with other Duet 3 boards. 3D Printz is a UK-based filament supplier, but in recent times have become so much more. They're now a great destination for finding name brand components from all over the world, such as the Anklab's BL Touch, Wham Bam Systems, flexible build plates, 3D Gloop, Magico, Bondtech, Slice Engineering, and more. If you're in the UK and Europe, and maybe further afield too, you might want to check out their shop for your next printer upgrade. In the UK, you'll also be able to take advantage of their free shipping for orders over £50. Ratrig is a company that you may not have heard of yet, but if you're into DIY 3D printers, or camera sliders, then we're going to change that today. The VCore 3 is a fully configurable CoreXY 3D printer kit. It's gone through several iterations over the years, and all the knowledge and lessons learned have been distilled into the VCore 3. MGN linear rails, low vibration idlers, robust 3030 extrusion frame, and 9mm belts are just some of the key selling points. Today I'm looking at the 300mm cube default configuration, but it's also available in 400mm and 500mm cubes for those that like their printers big, and with lots of configuration options too. Keep watching to find out more, or if you need more details immediately, you can find the links in the video description. Right, let's carry on. Just noticed this is actually not quite square, is it? Don't know why. There you go. Does that make a bit more... Oh, maybe if we move it this way a bit. So, let's carry on with zip tying this lot in. I might just go with... Oh, somebody mentioned Velcro zip ties, and yes, that is a really good thing. Obviously, when you've got pre-printed parts like this, you can't really add it in very easily, because they're generally much larger. But yeah, on the back panel, that would be a great time to use Velcro zip ties. They give you much more flexibility with trying and trying again. So that's that lot clamped on there. Now we need all this to go through here. Probably going to need the power supply attached as well now, aren't we? Now I will be putting some sleeving, that's the word, over what I've got here, what I've done so far. The fabric sleeving that I showed previously, I have some nearby, this stuff. It's really neat, kind of opens up, self-closing, very good for doing wire management like this. But I'm not putting that on right at this moment. Right, power supply. I think this is the same. Yep. Where's the power supply? There. Oh, looks like I was testing some screw terminals. We'll just leave them in there, that's fine. So there will be another earth cable because I'm going to earth the frame as well, which will require some mangling of the frame, unfortunately, to get a good electrical connection. But for now, how long do we want this one earth cable? About that long. So we probably want to cut off maybe this much of the end. It's about here, I think. That'll probably be enough. And then we're going to use the same terminals as before. We could use fork terminals. The Duet actually includes some fork terminals as well for their bits over here. There's nothing wrong with fork terminals, not at all. I prefer rings purely on the basis that they can't come out, and I'm pretty sure that's better. Especially for an earth cable, like obviously what you really want is a good connection. But if you don't have a good connection, the second thing you want is a not quite so good connection rather than no connection at all. Let's get a bit that I can use to remove that. There you go. That's the bed successfully earthed. Yes, yeah. What I normally do, in fact what I've done before, just because this terminal gets a bit busy, is earth everything directly to a point on the frame and then one cable that goes to the earth on the power supply. So now of course we need to do the solid state relay, which is always interesting. So a solid state relay looks like this. Let's go close. Looks like this. This one has nice folding covers. Normally they have a single solid cover. It has a, well, in this one, an alternating current high voltage side and a direct current DC low voltage side. You might be able to see it marked, but you probably can't because it's very small and there's not much contrast in those colours. So this is the low voltage side, so 3 to 32 volts DC, and that's what allows you to switch the bed on and off. So this is what will connect to the terminals over here. This will connect to those. On the high voltage side, which is the bit that you're switching, you need to basically put this in line with one of these wires, so it goes in one side and the same wire comes out the other side. You don't connect the two wires across it like that. That won't work. Ground the frame is not just for good feelings. Ground the frame is important. Very, very much so important. Don't skimp on grounding. You can never do too much grounding. Right, hang on. That might be a slightly ambitious statement. Someone will come up with some daft scenario. But given that ground is purely a safety thing, you can really never do too much of it. Just go for it. If you want to do each of the extrusions, go for it late. I mean, you probably don't need to. It gets a bit over the top. But you can't do too much. Earthing is good for the safeties. Best to use one for life and one for zero. What are you talking about? Oh, SSRs, 2. I think we're just using the one. So, which way up did I have this? So I think it was this way up, and then our low voltage side is going out that way, up here, over here, and then our high voltage side is coming in here to this one, and then back out, not to there, to here. It's all going to get a little bit crowded in this area, I think, especially now I've dumped this bloody connector right in the middle of it. Ah, is that going to fit? That's going to be a little bit cozy, that, isn't it? That might be a bit too cozy. Might have been a bit ambitious with this connector in here. That should fit that way. You want to be really careful when you, well, yes, all of this should be covered, so don't go trying to use this when it's all on or anything like that. My brother lives in a house in Belgium which was built before earthing was a thing. None of the mains electrics are earthed. Ah, that's horrendously sad. That's so bad. Don't connect the bed MOSFET of the board to the SSR. Use any free pin on the board for it. Better use the MOSFETs for something like LEDs. No. I mean, pretty sure any of the pins on the Duet can have reasonably high current, so I don't think you need the bed connector for anything else. The default setup is to use the bed for it. You're not going to need the amount of power from that bed to do LEDs. I seem to have used the M4 nuts that I had somehow for the SSR. They're gone. Do I have some more? Hello, M4 nuts. I don't think I have any more nuts. I should have a whole bag of them somewhere, but I might have put them away again because I thought I didn't need any more. I shall be back in a moment when I've found my M4 nuts. Oh dear, that's that broken. Nope. should be here somewhere. Ah, there we go. Have you got the earth going to the wrong terminal on the power supply? Oh, shoot. Well, that's embarrassing. It's because, okay, I'm going to make an excuse. It's because I'm doing it at a slightly funny angle. Well done for pointing out. Yes, this is the earth symbol. This is neutral, this is live. Do not connect your earth to the neutral. That would be dangerous. Wow, that was a stupid mistake. This is why I hate these labels that don't line up with things properly. Anyway, thank you, James. Well pointed out. You need no high power for the SSR. I know you don't need high power for the SSR, but the default configuration uses those terminals, and I'm not planning to modify the default files. Despite the fact I've modified huge amounts of this already, it's more that I've added stuff on top rather than modify what's already there. Still looks wrong. Yeah, it looks wrong because the label's cack, but it's definitely right now. It's the third, so you've got live, neutral, earth, so this is live, neutral, earth. Obviously you're seeing a really weird angle from there as well, but I promise you that is right now. It's the third one along. Live, neutral, earth. Live, neutral, earth. Don't try and make me check things 4 times. Oh, I didn't even... I'm clearly getting tired because I didn't get an extra screw when I know I needed an extra screw. I think we'll give this a bit of a go and then we'll have to stop and carry on another day. And box of sparks. I've got a good story about box of sparks, but it's probably not the appropriate time. Right, that needs tightening. That is a terrible location for that connector, isn't it? This thing, that needs a better position because it's right in front of this terminal. Might even take it out at the moment and find a better place at another time. I think something's going to be needed in here, but that is not the place. Joe, if you want to put it in a different place, you do you, that's fine. But it's not a waste if you're not planning to do anything else with it, is it? Right. So, live and neutral to the bed is kind of, because it's alternating current, as far as the bed is based, like it's not polarized, that's why they're both white, they're both the same. So we can do this with either one of these. It doesn't matter which one you do, but I'm going to choose this one because it looks like the right one. Looks conveniently placed. So is going to be going up out of here through this clip that we've put in an annoying place. I'll tell you what, this clip also needs to be flipped around that way. That's going to be easier to access. That's going in here, that's going in here, that's going to go up here, and that's going to go to there. So that's the first length that we need, about to here. And this is constructed the same as the extruder heater, the hot end heater rather. I always say those words, hot end and extruder, interchangeably. But it's very much not the same thing. The extruder just pushes plastic, the hot end just melts it. Just going to double check what size terminal fits on. This is obviously capable of really high currents, so these small hole Wattses might not fit. No, just realised I didn't crimp that on the end. So, oh, this is one that I made with a higher. There you go. That's got a bigger ring, so that'll fit nicely. So we'll use this one instead. They're actually, despite the fact they're different. Oh, can you not probably see too much? Despite the fact the rings on these are two different sizes, the current rating is just based on the. Well, it's not really based on the color, but all the ones with the same color, I'm pretty sure have the same current rating. So obviously, this one could probably manage more in reality, like if you were to test them to failure, but they're rated the same. So I'm going to use the wrong tool. So that's very nicely tidied. That's going over there. That's going in there. I think these are all coming out a little bit longer than I wanted, but it'll be okay. Again, I'm using ring terminals because they can't come loose. Quite a big advantage, I'm pretty sure. There you go. I think I'm going to use the exact same wire out the other side to do this bit, just because I know it's the exact right gauge. Yeah, we'll obviously need an input to these terminals as well, so got to be a little bit wary of that. It's a little bit unfortunate. I wish there was like designated output terminals as well, so you didn't have to stack terminals on one point, because I'm not a big fan of doing that. It never sits quite as nicely as you might hope. You tend to have to put like an extra big terminal in and then a smaller one on top, and then flip them over the top of each other and whatnot, just to try and get them all in there. It's a bit of a tight squeeze. So again, we always do, well, I tend to do, I do one end with a wire that I know is too long. Come on, there we go. And then once it's in, I can route it to where I need it and then get the right length for the other end. Again, we're going to try not to get too overzealous with the length. Maybe there. Obviously, because we've got a bit spare, it doesn't matter if we mess this up too much, as long as we've got some spare terminals, which I would always recommend having extra terminals, because they're very easy to get slightly wrong, and most of the time the only way to fix it is to cut it off, which shortens your wire. So having some spare terminals is always a good idea. That as well, and the pricing generally for terminals doesn't scale, well, it scales very well, I should say. So if you buy one terminal, you might end up spending like £2 on one terminal, but if you buy 1,000, you'll end up spending like £10. So it's like, that's not what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. So it's worth buying good batch, especially if you're expecting to use them. Also, you don't buy 1,000 if you're only ever going to build one printer. That's just clearly not worth it. But hopefully you get what I mean. The difference between buying exactly the number you need and buying a few more than you need shouldn't be significantly different. Now, if you're a real pro at doing wire crimping, which I'm not, I've done it a few times, but I wouldn't call myself like a real pro. That's like, anyway, before I say the wrong thing, you can obviously orientate these connectors in certain ways. So if you know the orientation of both the ways, the ends that you want, you might be able to manipulate the ends to make the path kind of optimal, so you're not having to twist the wire in the middle. That generally is more important for shorter wires like this. For the long ones, it's generally not a problem, but it's not caused me any problems so far, my lack of ability to do that. So it's not something I tend to worry about. Ooh. I mean, I wouldn't want, is that going to be a problem? I wouldn't have thought so. Get a bit of separation. They're just a bit close. Probably okay. I mean, I was thinking actually about this whole back panel and the arrangement. So the way I generally like to set up wiring like this is to have a high voltage side and a low voltage side, and that would be so that there's never any high voltage wires that can fail to a DC low voltage wire. So anything that's low voltage goes like one side of a wall, and everything that's high voltage goes the other. In this particular scenario, the only way to get the low voltage over to the board without passing this is to go all the way up round here, or kind of loop massively over the top. Now obviously both of those are possible, and there's definitely nothing wrong with it, but I would generally set it up based on how the power supply is. So this power supply, and a lot of them, have low voltage on the left and high voltage on the right. So I would put the high voltage, which would be the SSR, the mains inlet, and all this kind of stuff over on this side, and then all the low voltage stuff on this side. So as it would come in, say from an IC connector, maybe in the side here, it would come in to this side of the power supply, maybe where the Duet is, and then you'd have your SSR, your mains, and that would come out the bottom. And then you could almost put a solid wall in here, and then out the other side there, you have your high voltage, your low voltage DC. And you could obviously set up your SSR to like sit on the wall, so one side of your wall, one side of the SSR is on the high voltage side, and the other side of it is on the low voltage side. So that might be another change I suggest at some point. Like, it's a major change to someone who's already built a printer, but to build the exact same printer with the exact same parts but flipped around the other way, it would be basically no different. I mean, it's a bit of annoying for the bed cables because they're on the left side of the bed. You can't win them all. It's not, to be clear, it's not like a major problem. I don't expect it to be an issue. But, you know, it's one of those things that's worth mentioning or talking about or having the conversation about. So I guess we'll do this wire while we're here. This is going up here to the neutral. Just trying to make sure everything coming through this hole is going to be about the same length. And let's get a bigger ring terminal. When attaching the connector to the power supply or to the SSR, what is the correct order of inserting the screw, the metal plate and the connector? That's quite a good question, that. So, obviously you have, I mean with this one, they come out together. It's actually captive, so that tells you immediately which way around it's supposed to go. But I shall answer the question anyway. So you have the permanent part, and then the ring goes on top of that, and then the plate goes on top of that, and then the screw holds it all together. And it's the same for the power supply. Just like that. So your terminal that's connected into there is sandwiched between the permanent part of the SSR and the screw, and the plate rather, that's sitting on top, and the screw is just providing the clamping load. Hopefully that makes sense. Good question. From phase to neutral and then back the other way from live to neutral. Electron change direction 60 or 50 times a second depending on country. Yep, that's AC. For what it's worth, in most houses there's a ground fault interrupter. If the current finds a way out of the bed into the ground wire or via the human operator into the floor, the ground fault interrupter will turn the live off. Unfortunately, not every house has that, and it takes a moment to trigger. Yeah, so that's what makes live dangerous, is the fact that we are normally connected to ground, and live is reference to ground. So that makes the full circuit, which is why like connectors in your bathroom have an isolator. So it has basically like coils, a bit like high voltage inverters. I think there's inverters. Yeah. I get lost in terminology. I know kind of how it works, but the words are not. It basically isolates the actual live neutral, that's also sort of connected reference to ground, and then the live neutral in the bathroom, so it doesn't connect to the taps and the water, which is what causes lots of problems and deaths in the bathroom. Anyway, this last connector is going on here, and then I think we should be done for today. I think we've made a smashing amount of progress. For anyone that was doubting that wiring takes a little while, hopefully this video is a good reference for that. It does take forever, and I would urge you to take the time and do it correctly and not try and rush it. And especially don't connect the earth connector to the neutral, because then you'll make your entire printer very dangerous. Whew. Fuse won't short to ground unless there's anything ground nearby, in which case it might be able to, but probably wouldn't. They're normally encased in ceramic or plastic to prevent any connection. A fuse typically just literally breaks the circuit. It's normally, like, very basically a very thin piece of filament which will deliberately break at a specified current and voltage, basically mainly current. It basically just breaks, disappears, no longer conductive, so no current can move. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. I'm really tired now. Anyway. Oh, thermal fuse, yeah. But like fuses in general, obviously doesn't work the same way with a thermal fuse. Because it's temperature based, hence the name thermal. Anyway, that is going to be it for today. Thank you everyone for joining in. Look at all the progress we made. Bloody fantastic, if I do say so myself. It's looking, I mean, the writing obviously all over it is an absolute mess, but the wiring itself is looking pretty good. I think these little connectors that I've got, these clips are working pretty well. Obviously that position I had down there was rubbish, but maybe I think this might be the new good position for that one, because we've got one here, and these wires, because they're really short and quite thick, they don't really need support anyway, they're not going anywhere. But the whole routing and everything is going to help keep things neat, help us know exactly what's what, help us keep track of everything, and because it's all clipped, we can take out anything and replace it if needs be without having to cut 100 zip ties. So in the next episode, next time we do this, we're probably going to continue with wiring. As you can see, there's quite a lot still to do. We've barely even touched the hot end extruder assembly yet. We did start some of the extensions, but that was just kind of so I showed you those connectors. Obviously got to do all of those on the other end as well. What else have we got to do? We've still got to wire in the mains connector so we can actually get power, because at the moment we've just connected everything to the power supply with no actual power coming in. We also need to add the LAN connector, which will allow us to have Ethernet directly into the board from an external connector. And then we still got lots of motors and end stop, thermals, beds, this thing, this thing, that thing, the other thing. And I've made an enormous mess as well. But it's been pretty good, I think. Oh dear. Oh, I'm clearly super tired, and you guys might have to take your disagreement somewhere else, because the stream's going to shut off in a minute and you'll be cut off mid-conversation. Thanks, Simon. Thanks for being here, everyone. It's been great to have you here. Thank you for asking questions. Hopefully my answers were somewhat useful. Hopefully I provided some useful information in doing this for you as well. Hopefully somebody found it useful. I was doing it anyway, so you know, great to share information as much as we can. Don't worry about it, Simon. You do you. If you need to recover, you recover. Thanks for being here. It's great to have you. Thanks, Mikhail. Thanks for answering all the questions as well. That's always very useful, and I'm thankful for that. Pavel obviously was here at the beginning as well, so thank you to him, although he's obviously not here at the moment to receive that. But maybe he'll watch the end of the stream at another time. Who knows? For now, I'm going to love you and leave you. It's 10:15 now. So, yes. The next stream might be Sunday evening, maybe. Because I don't really need to do any more preparation now for the next episode. We're pretty much just going to carry on as we are till we get all this wiring in. So yes, hopefully it'll be Sunday. I've taken 10 minutes to say goodbye now. So thank you very much everyone for staying, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Where's the button? There it is.